Morning.
Good morning.
All right, this is the last time you're going to hear from me, whether that's good or bad, but it's the last time. Now, remember when we talked the first day, and I told you, look, there's no denying. A young child died. It's a tragic situation. It shouldn't have happened. You are the people who decide when it happened, how it happened, who did it. Okay? But it is a tragedy. And again, don't think that we're immune to that fact. Now, let's talk about a couple of things that were just mentioned in the opening. And I told you about this, in the closing. I told you about this, and I brought this up to you in the opening statement when I did it. Look, no matter what you see, no matter what reaction Brad Fields has, he's not going to win. Because if he cries, he's faking it. If he acts mad, he's too mad. If he doesn't show any emotion, he's not emotional enough. So we can't win that battle. I told you don't fall into that trap to consider that. And I'm asking you to do the same thing. Now, we heard a lot of text messages throughout this process, throughout this trial. They were read to you. And there are total, between Candace and Brad Fields, there are thousands of pages of messages. Okay? And you heard a portion of those. You heard somewhere between 71 and 86 pages. I believe Sergeant Edger said 71, but I think she miscounted, so I'm giving her credit for 15 more. 86 pages. That is a fraction. That is a fraction of what is out there. It's less than 1%. So it's a very small fraction. And why is that important? Because there's so many other messages that were out there. You were told that the messages reflect a hatred for Gabrielle Barrett by Brad Fields. There's no messages that reflect a hatred. A lot of those messages that you heard that were read to you, they do reflect a growing frustration. And that was shared by both people. But you do see the growing frustration that Brad Fields has based on the behavior of Gabrielle Barrett, based on his interaction with Gabrielle Barrett. For instance, what am I talking about? If you recall, a lot of those text messages were about what? She peed on the floor. She took poop and wrote on the wall. She peed her pants again. I think she's doing it on purpose. She's doing this to make me mad. She's doing this to piss me off. That's growing frustration, and you can see it escalating. There's no denying that. You can see that escalating throughout the months, the weeks. Growing frustration of taking care of two children in a situation where money's tight, the car's broken down, there's a lot going on, and he's taking care of the child that he and Candace have in common, and he's taking care of the other child, Gabrielle Barrett, who is Candace's daughter. Right. So we see that frustration. Now, I won't go through a lot of those because we just don't have that kind of time. But you also have to remember that Candace, the conversations that were had between, say, Candace and Brad Fields, Candace Diaz and Brad Fields, Candace Diaz and other people, Candace Diaz and her mother, Cynthia Diaz, those messages, if you recall, they reflected a much more consistent, violent attitude toward the situation. For instance, she says that when Brad Fields is complaining, and this is on November 28th, She knows I can't handle this, so getting shit and piss on me on purpose. IDFK, I don't fucking know. Candace says, tell her I'm beating her ass. Those are Candace's words. She says, again, same day, some more complaints about behavior while Candace is at work. What she says. What does Candace say? She says, tell her again I'm beating her ass when I get home. I'm beating her ass. This is becoming consistent. It's becoming common. She says, next day, when there's more discourse, more conversation going back and forth, she says, she's done when I get home. I'm beating her. 2 days, we already got 3 times where she says, when I get home, I'm beating her. She says later, really? I just got out, heading home, WTF, what the fuck, is her problem? I'm taking her out, outside, then fuck this. Those are Candace Diaz's words. Those are Gabrielle Barrett's mother's words about how she's going to beat her ass. But that's not all of it. She also tells Cynthia Diaz, why don't you get a place so you can just take her? I'm done. I'm done. You take her. She can come live with you. Get a place so she can come live with you. Candace Diaz can't handle the situation anymore. She wants to get rid of Gabrielle Barrett. And this is days, 3 or 4 days before Gabrielle Barrett dies. Her mother is telling someone else, I need to get rid of her. I don't want her. You can have her. What's the easiest way to get rid of her? So, Mr. Elson, in his opening, he told you that Gabrielle Barrett's monsters were not in her closet. They were not under her bed. They were the 2 people who were supposed to provide for her and protect her. And Candace Diaz has demonstrated through her words that she wasn't up to the task for her. They're both, Brad Fields wasn't vying for any Parent of the Year awards, okay? These 2 were struggling. These 2 are simple people trying to get by, trying to survive, trying to handle a child with some behavioral issues, regardless of where you think those are coming from, behavioral issues. Cynthia Diaz told you about some of that. She told you about fits. She told you about out of nowhere, hitting, kicking, doing those types of things. So, all of these things are going on. What I'm submitting to you is the monster in this situation is Candace Diaz. She's the mother who wants to beat her daughter's ass, kill her, send her off to live with somebody else. She's the monster in this situation. Now, Gabby's not on trial. So I'm not trying to insist that she is or to denigrate her integrity. She's a 4-year-old. That would be stupid of me to do. She's not on trial here. Brad Fields is. You heard a lot of information about, well, Brad Fields and Candace did this. Brad Fields and Candace did this. Well, Candace isn't here to answer to that. Brad Fields is the one facing these charges. So you have to decide, what did Brad Fields do? What did Brad Fields participate in? What did Brad Fields do to help, to conspire? What did he do? That's what you have to decide. Now, you heard about the different crimes that are being charged here. Felony murder, second-degree child abuse, torture, all of those things. Okay. And you were told, and this is not untrue, probably the most important aspect that you really need to consider is that aiding and abetting aspect. That theory. That's not a charge. That's a theory of how this happened. Aiding and abetting. Did I help this person in some way, regardless of how I did it, verbally? Getaway driving. Gave the gun to shoot the guy. To help, to assist, whatever inducement, whatever degree, to help that person commit and complete the crime. This record does not demonstrate that Brad Fields was aiding, Brad Fields was abetting, Brad Fields was helping. This merely shows that Brad Fields is in this situation along with Candace Diaz, trying to deal with it. And remember, mere presence, we talked about that, just because he's there. Just because he lives there. Just because he assists in the care, the custody of Candace Diaz, does not make him guilty of murder, torture, child abuse, all of those things. It doesn't. Even if he knew something was going on and he didn't step up and say, hey, cool, this activity's got to stop. Even if he didn't do that, whether you agree with it or not, that doesn't make him guilty of murder or any of the other charges. Merely being present does not make you an aider and abetter in an agreement to commit a conspiracy, to conspire with someone to commit these crimes. Okay. The medical exam. He was a pretty smart guy. He told us a lot of things that most of us probably didn't understand. But he had opinions on all of them. And I probably asked him, was that your opinion? 20 times. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it is. It's an opinion. It's based on experience. It's based on his knowledge. But when it comes down to it, he wasn't there. He didn't see what happened. It's an opinion. He spoke about blunt force trauma. He spoke about asphyxiation. He spoke about the burns. He spoke about contributing factors. That he said, this shows a long-term series of abuse that ultimately culminates in the death of Gabrielle Barrett. Things like decaying teeth, which Cynthia Diaz told. Well, she used to live with me, and she's had problems with her teeth like that since she was 18 months old. And other factors that she said occurred while she was under Cynthia Diaz's care. He spoke about malnutrition because she was on the lower end of the weight scale for an average 4-year-old. She was in the 10th percentile, so she was small. She weighed less than the other 90% of the population of average 4-year-olds, even though she had food in her stomach when they looked at her stomach. He spoke about all of those things, and in his opinion, when he had numerous things to choose from, he made the opinion, well, ultimately it must have been Asphyxiation. Okay, so how did that happen? When did that happen? I told you about the growing concern, the growing frustration, and the growing bellicose kind of language, the hateful language from Candace Diaz 3 or 4 days before she died. At the end of Gabrielle's life, this tragic death of this young child experience, Candace Diaz just couldn't take it anymore. Candace Diaz lost it. Candace Diaz, the mother of this child, who wanted to send her away, was the monster. She was the monster. Now, the time for all these questions that we have, that's all over. Now it's time for some answers. I'm telling you what the answers are. The answers are, you can see them, Candace Diaz's decline. You can see that. You can see it clearly. That's our theory of what happened. Candace Diaz is what happened. Candace Diaz is the monster. Candace Diaz killed her own daughter. That's what I want you to think of. I'm asking you to find Brad Fields not guilty of these crimes. Why? Because there is no definitive evidence in this case that he joined in an agreement with her to conspire for this death or to aid and abet. That has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and it has not. If you think about all of that in totality, all of these things you saw and you heard in totality, and you have some doubt, and you got good reasons for those doubts, you got reasonable doubt. And if you have reasonable doubt on any of these charges, or each of those charges that you have the doubt on, you have to find out. So that's what I'm asking you to think. Time for questions is over. Now it's time for some answers. And the answer I'm telling you is the answer is Candace Diaz was the monster.